What's up, guys? Welcome to Podcast 412, Fight for Purity. A bold way of looking at challenges that young people are facing. We'll talk about the naked truth of life and how to handle the problems you're thinking but not talking about. So strap in, get ready for another great podcast.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're going to continue on our speech, conversation / connections with people. Before we get started, I actually looked up a fun fact. So I learned that, well, I wanted to know why guys' voices are deeper than girls' voices. And they said the reason a guy's voice is deeper than a girl's is because their vocal cord, I think it's their vocal cord, is longer. I guess as they get older, it thickens and it's longer. They said it's about that a guy's, I think it's his larynx, I don't know, his vocal cord, it's about an inch roughly longer than a girl's.
So that's why their voice like drops after
puberty? Because they say it thickens, it gets longer, and then they said that it actually tilts back. And then it sticks out. That's why they have an Adam's apple. Yeah. So, because I wanted to know why the voices were different, or why there was more bassy. Yeah. But that's why. It's because there's a sticker. It's longer, and then it tilts back, and so then the end of it you see is the Adam's apple. That's why girls and children don't have.
Why we don't have that.
So ours is shorter and it's not as thick. That's why our voices
and ours doesn't tilt.
Yeah, so there's like there's more to it, obviously, but that's pretty much the basic is that theirs is like an inch bigger than ours and thicker.
That's like
So
wild.
I thought that was I thought that was interesting. So a fun fact for you. So if you wondered why a guy's voice is deeper, that's
why.
Yeah,
and that's where the Adam's apple comes from. Nice. I like that.
Bluetooth out. Yeah. So. But yeah, so one of the things that we kind of touched on a little bit last week was another way that obviously that we speak a lot through is through social media and through texting. And that's a big thing. And one of the things that I'm sure most of us, I would think, are familiar with is, when you're texting or when you're communicating or speaking through social media, you avoid the whole facial expressions. Like I can't see what you're looking at or what you're doing, or if you're even listening or paying attention to what I'm texting you. I have no idea, like, if you're even paying attention. I don't know. I have no idea, like, what your body language is saying. I don't know if you're mad. I don't know if you're happy. I don't know if you're cooking. I have no idea what you're doing when I'm texting you, or even, like, when you're on social media. But yet that's a big, big, big thing. And I think one of the things that I read was that even though we communicate more. I know, like they said, since COVID, that's been like the major platform that we were all communicating was through social media or through texting through our phones. That we still tend to get lonely still. We still, and it's more, and that you're more isolated when you do that. Yeah. Like the more that you're on social media, the more that you're on text, on your phone, you actually isolate yourself more. So I think that's one of the, I don't know if it's a benefit or if it's, I don't know.
A side effect?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't know if it's a benefit to not be able to see what your expression is. I don't know if that's a benefit or not.
I guess it depends on what kind of conversation you're having.
Because that's the one thing I think that people today is they don't have that face-to-face, interaction with people. You don't have those face-to-face conversations, and that's one of the things I think too is that we needed to kind of, is that we said it a little bit in our last podcast was that when you're having a conversation, it's a conversation between either a group of us or two of us or something, but there's a back and forth. I speak, you listen, you speak, I listen, but it's not me yelling at you, or, screaming at you to get my views across or point or whatever it is that I'm trying to explain to you guys, I don't know what you guys think, like, if you want to kind of jump in as far as, like, the whole social media thing. Because I feel like, especially with difficult conversations, I mean, should you have a difficult conversation, you know, on social media, like Facebook and texting? Go ahead.
No, so I was just thinking, like, you know, maybe like there is pros and cons, especially with some difficult conversations, because then there's that paper trail in a sense.
Yeah.
There's not that
He said,
he said, she said type thing. I'll be like, no, you said this on this date.
Screenshots.
Like,
Yeah.
I have it saved. You may deleted it, but it's saved.
Yeah.
So that's I guess is a pro, but like at the same time, it's kind of hard because you don't know. Like you were saying, like you don't know what their facial expression is. Like you can't really gauge like where the conversation's gonna go. Like they can easily just block you. Like they.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was just thinking like.
Yeah, and I think you could be more aggressive too, though, because I know that people tend to be more aggressive on social media. You say stuff on social media that you would never say face to face.
Yeah.
You know, and I think sometimes that's bad, because then you know, if you said something face to face with somebody, they at least have the opportunity to say something back, or to argue their point, or to give their opinion, you know, because it's easy to just, you know, sit there, well, you know what, this, you know, and
then block.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
Well, I think what it does is it gets rid of the conversation part.
Yeah.
It's like because like you're saying, conversation is a back and forth, you know. It's in, like when you said on one of our first episodes, we were talking about speech and everything. It's an exchanging of ideas, you know. If it's on social media and you say your spiel, you know, you rant or whatever, and then you leave,
yeah.
there's no conversation.
Yeah.
You lose the consequence of what you're saying, and I think that's why people can be super aggressive, because they know they can say whatever they want, and for the most part, you know, I don't know, sometimes people are crazy, so no one's gonna hunt you down, you know, and find you because you made a comment on a post or you texted them, you know, whatever. And I guess that's the bad thing about communicating or trying to have conversations through social media and texting, is that there's no I don't know if I want to say consequence, but like there's no reaction, I guess.
There's no room to grow, I guess, and to like hear the other person's opinion as to why they said what they said, or why they think the way that they do, I guess. Right?
Yeah, so no, that makes
I'm like,
that
I don't know, I
makes
don't know if that works.
No, that makes sense. So, and I guess like when you want to have like a real conversation, it can't be through online stuff, because there is no facial expression. And even if it's like the video chats and everything, you know, one button, you can end the call. You're like, you know what, I'm done talking to you.
Or like when we had the flip phones.
Yes. Exactly. You know, so like that's the bad thing, because, you know, even in this like setting, we can gauge what we're gonna say based off of what other people are saying, or based off of their facial expressions. You know, if I'm talking like this, you know, just somebody, you know, it's gonna give a different vibe versus if I'm just kind of like relaxed, you know. And even like you were saying, your facial expressions, like for somebody like in customer service, they know, you know, facial expressions are everything when you're communicating with people.
Yes.
And I think
it
it gives you like you said, kind of gives you room to grow. And you have to, like when you have a face-to-face conversation with somebody, you have to learn like self-control. Like you can't let your emotions like get the best of you. You can't, you know, if it's like a hard conversation, like it's just a difficult subject, or you're struggling with something, or whatever it is, you know, you're mad about something, you have to practice self-control. You have to keep yourself from getting too emotional. And when you're on social, you know, you can, you know, like I said, I keep doing that, but it's because that, you know, that's what people do. They get on, you know, they get mad and they get on their phones and they start, you know, but yet, you know, you're not showing any self-control, because you're just blurring out whatever your emotions are. But when you're sitting face to face with somebody, I mean, you can still do that. You know, you can still lose your control, but you have to more control yourself, you know, and hopefully learn something from having that conversation. Learn that you were wrong, or that maybe you didn't see something right, or that, you know, like I said, I think it's a lot harder to have a difficult conversation on social media and on texting. I feel like it's something that you need to be able to have amongst,
It is, but at the same time, because me personally, it's like if I have to have like if there's, I guess, an argument going on, the one thing that I do like about it is that it actually gives me self-control through text. I can actually think about what I'm going to say. Because obviously not everybody, I guess it really just depends on you as a person. Not everybody does that and they just start texting right away what they're thinking. But for me personally, it helps me not only read it 1,000 times to see, okay, am I overreacting? Is this what they're trying to say? And it also gives me an option to ask like somebody else, do you think they're really, like, this is what I think when I read this. Am I correct in what I'm thinking what I'm reading right here? And then I can also ask somebody, because that's my biggest thing. I always ask somebody else that, like if I'm about to text it back, and then I'll show them, is this right? Does this come off rude? Is this respectful? Is this, whatever? Because that's the one pro for me, is being able to do that through text. I can't do that in like when I'm face to face. I can't. Let's pause and let me ask my mom, my sister, my friends. So like,
I need to phone a friend.
Yes, I can't do that. So
I guess it's the good and bad thing. I guess if you're communicating right, I guess it depends on your relationship with the person you're trying to talk to. If it's like a work relationship, I think it makes sense to do things over text and stuff. Like you said, paper trail. But also because, like you said, you have to filter things out, and like self-control. Like you said, you can't.
Is this proper?
Yeah, you can't go on a rant in your text to your boss because it's not professional, So there's those different kinds of conversations with different kinds of people. Versus, if you're having a conversation with a friend through your text, you might be able to go off a little bit and then like text back, be like, my bad, just hold on, give me a second,
You just see the dots constantly.
They're thinking.
Exactly. So I guess it just depends. But I think, like you were saying, difficult conversations, those tend to be with people you have a decent relationship with, and it's usually not work relationships. But those need to be done face to face. I think, like with siblings, with family, with friends, if there's something going on, like they need to be done face to face, not just because not because you want the reaction, but because it's one of those things, like you want to be heard. And if it's through the phone or anything, you feel like you might not be, because they can ignore your text,
not see it for 3 hours.
Not see it for 3 hours, or or think about it for like 20 minutes, and you're there stressing on the other end because you said something, or you're trying to.
Well, it's easy to like dismiss a person right away, like when it's through like social media or a text message or something. It's just easy to just be like,
I'll think about that later.
Turn off the notifications.
So it's like you want what you're saying to be a priority, and it's only a priority when you're face to face with someone. And even when you're face to face, like you said, you need to have self-control, because if somebody's telling you something personal, you can't just let your facial expressions just go all over the place.
You can, but
you can, but it's not gonna be a good conversation anymore.
Me personally, I have to watch my face sometimes, because it's just I don't mean it, but like sometimes it's like that post that's like, my mouth doesn't need salvation, it's my face that needs like salvation. I need Jesus.
Sometimes like it's hard, and difficult conversations are difficult. That's why they're called that. But they're needed. You need to have those difficult conversations. They're not hard just to be hard, but it's because you're, like we said, you're growing, you're trying to figure things out, you're trying to solve a problem, and that requires like time and effort on both ends. You can't just vomit out everything that's happening, but you also have to listen to the other side. So whether you're the person talking or you're the person being talked to, you have to make sure that when you're being talked to, you're actually like paying attention to what
you're saying. And I think that's so much harder with this generation, because they don't know how to like read facial expressions, or they don't know how to, because they only know how to communicate through text. They only know how to talk through social media, that whole face to face. But I mean, it's like, you know, we live in a world where you gotta like interact with people, you know, and so I feel like it's something that is so needed, you know. But like kind of like what you said too, is on the other end, you have to be able to listen, you know. And I think especially like with relationships, you know, whether it's a spouse or whether it's a friend or maybe a parent, you know, you have to learn to listen and not be ready to like, you know, react to whatever it is that they're telling you, you know. And that, and also knowing that you're not always going to have like an answer. You're not always going to have a response, or you're not always going to know how to respond, or a solution is not always going to be like right there.
Yeah, I think sometimes too, it's like when you're having those difficult conversations, it's easy to feel like you're being almost like attacked.
Yeah.
If someone has an issue with you or with how your relationship's going, and you feel like this need to be like, well, no, that's not how it is. That's not this. That's you're reading it wrong. But that's part of listening. You've got to just take it, whether you agree with it or not, whether it's the truth or not. In that moment, it's their turn to talk. And you've got to let them say it, because they might say something else that would explain why they feel that way, but you won't let them have that chance if you interrupt. So, and I think it's like you said, it's just an exchange, and it's going back and forth, and like you said, emotional control during difficult conversations. It's hard, especially if you're the person talking, to keep your emotions in check, especially if it's like something that makes you angry or makes you feel vulnerable. You want to cry or you want to get mad, you know. But you've got to keep it in check if you want to be able to get your thoughts across.
Even if you do lose control, like when you're crying or you're yelling or whatever, it does help that you got it out in the first place. Because sometimes you can have an argument with somebody and then they lose control and they say all this crap, but then you're, like you said, like taken aback, but it puts it out in the air. Like, I didn't know that you
felt so strongly.
Like, I didn't, like it shows you like how much it affects them and how personal they took it, and how, or like, how they took it in the first place. Like, it showed, like, even if they may be wrong, but it shows you just how like strongly it affected them. And even if they responded incorrectly, it shows you on the other side like, oh, this is serious. Like, versus over text, and they can say something and I would think, oh, it's no big deal. But like, if they would say, they could say that exact same sentence, but to me in person, I could see it in their face that they're mad.
Their tone, their body
they're
language.
mad, or they're really upset or offended or hurt. But it could be the exact same sentence. And I never would have known that if they just texted me that. I would have just thought, oh, they're okay. Like, because you're thinking you're thinking about how, well, I wouldn't be offended by that. Like, that's no reason to be upset about something, or like, I never would have taken it that way. But they're not you. So
I think that's a big thing, like with us when we're having conversations with anybody, is that we forget that there's another point of view, you know, sometimes. And just because it's not important to us or a big deal to us doesn't mean it's not to them. And just because it's not a big deal to you doesn't mean you should dismiss it either. You know, like some things that are like so tiny in my mind are like so important to my husband, you know, or to my kid even, you know, like the smallest thing for my son, you know, if I tell him no, it's devastating. The end of the world. I can't believe you would tell me no, mother, you know. But, you know, on my side, I'm like, you can't touch that, you know.
You're gonna hurt yourself.
You can't do it, you know. So there's always those two sides, and like you said, you've got to keep in mind that there's another point of view when you're having conversations, and it's not necessarily your job to convince them of your point of view. You're exchanging ideas, whether or not they agree. Sometimes, like you said, there's not going to be a solution. There's not. Sometimes you got to get it out, and then you got to have another conversation later to figure out how to fix it.
I think especially when somebody comes to you, like, you know, like a parent and child, like if one of your kids comes to you and they're struggling with something, you know, maybe they failed somewhere, they did something that they know, excuse me, that they know is going to disappoint you, you know, or something that they know that they messed up. And I think, you know, it's probably, that's a hard conversation you know, because you have to come to your parents and tell your parents, you know, and it's like, what are they going to say? How are they going to react? You know, because that's important. You know, how are you going to react? Are you going to come down on them like harsh right there? You know, are you going to say, well, that was really dumb? Or, you know what I mean? Or are you going to try to look past that and say, okay, what's really going on? Like, why did, you know, why did you
it come
go?
to that?
Why
Yeah.
did you go? Why did you make that decision? You know, instead of trying to figure out why they went there, sometimes you can get angry
We just react.
and just react. You know, like, you know, I can't believe, you know, that you would do such a thing. You know what I mean? Like, so, you know, you have to be, like I said, that person that is also willing to listen and hopefully walk away and learn something, you know, from that other person, or like in a marriage or in a relationship or whatever, you know.
Yeah. And I think that all comes back to like what we were saying last time about creating that relationship with
Connecting.
connecting. We gotta connect to the people in your life, because you know, without that connection, you're not gonna have a conversation. You know, you're not gonna have those difficult conversations, and they're always gonna do something, you know, that gets on your nerves or that you don't like, and you don't have the opportunity, like we said, to grow just as a person. You know, which is kind of like what we're supposed to do. You know, you're supposed to get better as you get older. You know, you can't get smarter if you're not around other people.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing. Like I said, back to the young people, is you gotta connect with people, you know, but not like just through social media over the phone or just.
Your opinion is not the only opinion.
Yeah, and it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, you have an opinion about something, and you know, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
That creates conversation.
yeah, then you can have a
Like,
conversation.
oh,
Well,
why
why?
do you see things like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Why do you see that, or why? What makes you see? You know, is it really your point of view, or is it that you heard
So and so say.
so
it.
and so say, and so you just adopted it as your
Yeah.
view?
And even like if you have like disagreeing point of views, I don't know if that makes sense, but that doesn't mean you can't get along with that person because you don't share the same views. Like you can still have a conversation with somebody you don't agree with.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and even just like talking about social media, you know, I tend to be more probably on the negative side of it, obviously because I'm older and I didn't grow up around it, you know. But that doesn't mean that, you know, well, I'm not gonna listen to her because, you know, she doesn't agree with my viewpoint.
Yeah.
You know, because she's not, you know, into social media, or she's not into, you know, you know, you could just dismiss it, you know, and not really. Well, let me think about what they said. Let me think about the points that they made. You know, there is some truth in some of the comments that were made. You know, let me think about that, and then, you know, then hopefully, you know, kind of change or have a talk, you know, with somebody, you know, another person. Just kidding.
Yeah. And I know that some people are going to say, well, you can make a connection over the phone. And you can. But that doesn't mean that it's a good one.
And then even if you do create a connection, it shouldn't stay over the phone. You know, it should eventually grow. You know, should eventually grow so that there's a physical, you know, appearance with your conversations and your connections and relationships. So, yeah. So
Well, I think that was the end of that.
that's the end of that. So just find connections, build those relationships, grow.
Be really social.
Yes,
Like
physically.
Physical.
Yes. This is good.
Build some relationships. So I think
Alright.
that's connect with people.
Yeah.
Connected.
And connect with God too.
Yes.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
next time.
Thanks for listening. Join us for our next podcast. You can contact us through Instagram at podcast412 or email us at 412fight@gmail.com. See you next time.